Hey, good morning, everyone. It's Michael and Andrew, CO to MO. We got Strategic Real Estate Services in Colorado and in Missouri. How you doing, Andrew?
Doing well, doing well. No complaints here. Like I said, lovely day. Getting the week rolling right here. So yeah, no complaints here. How's things on your end?
Not too bad, kind of same deal. Our last short that we did, we talked a little bit about a cool ninja tip that was shared with us around, the I'm sorry and, acknowledging the absence and those type of things.
Right.
Well, some feedback and some questions that came up were around, well, other than that, well, what are you kind of talking about? Right.
Hmm.
And so I said, I talk about Fords.
Yeah.
People go, why are you talking about cars? I go, why are you talking about cars, man? We're talking about Ford, right? So we're talking about your family, your friends, your occupation, your recreational activities, your hopes and dreams, those type of things.
Mhm.
So you made a comment on a one-on-one recently about real estate being an ancillary
Yeah.
and to be focusing on Ford, so to speak, if the acronym is true. So let's talk about that a little bit today.
Yeah. And again, I just kind of think about trying to relate to people, right? And at the end of the day, that's really, our job is certainly to help people buy in real estate, but that's really more of like an outcome of doing the job, which we've always said, you've kind of really drilled this into me from day one is we're in the relationship business, right? So
Yeah.
we're in the connection, communication, relationship business from day one. So, and I mean, and hey, man, if you're a realtor watching this, I don't want to burst your bubble, but we all get those recruiting calls, right? So,
Oh yeah.
if we all get the robocall that's like, oh, John Smith think it'd be a real great fit for the Smith Foundation. Do you have a great time to contact? How many of us even make it through that initial like kind of voice before we just turn the phone off, right? Because
Yep.
we know
Right.
they don't give a shit about us, right? They're not calling to connect with me. They're not calling to ask how I do business or why I do operate the way I operate or how I can help them or how they can impact me.
Right.
They're calling because they saw my production numbers and they want them. They're calling because they saw
Right.
your production numbers and they want them. And
Right.
that's well and good. And there's a fine time to talk about that, like financial and more, I guess, analytical driven conversation. I'm an analytics guy. I love numbers. I think with the world in a way that drives with that, right? But at the end of the day, if someone wants to impact me, they're gonna call and ask me about me. What am I doing? How is my family doing? What do I do for fun? What interests me? Where do I want to be in 5 years? Where do I want to see my son be in 5 or 6 years? Right? So those are the kinds of questions that are gonna build relationships and have long-standing impacts on people's incomes and their ability to conduct a business long term, right? So I mean, yeah, and think about it. An internet lead returns at, depending on what data you ask, like a 1 to 3% range, which is a big spread. But at the end of the day, like that's because you're kind of just playing the law of large numbers and trying to interact that way. Versus, we all know when you're 5, 6 years in, your business should be 60 to maybe 80% referral, right? Or past clients. And those just return at I think the last I checked was like 68 or 70% return. So I mean, you're
Right.
talking about a crushing difference in kind of having a relationship focused style of doing business versus having a transactional style. And if you have your forward conversations, you're going to inherently build the skill set and harvest that relationship with that person to be more relational, right? And again, guys, just like we talked about with the I'm sorry letter, this is a great skill set for your real estate business, for any business that you're going to rely on conversations and commissions. But this is great stuff to think about for your daily life, man. Like if you like, I mean, my wife always makes fun of me because like I'll know like the guy who is bagging our groceries at King Super's name, and I'm like, oh yeah, he's writing a book about his time when he ran track for Boise. He ran against Oregon. We had talked to him like for 30 minutes about it over the course of the last 6 months because we'll talk for 5 or 10 minutes and when I'm checking out, right? So
Right.
and it's just a couple of questions I try to ask, like, oh hey man, how's it going? How is your day? And just as we kind of go through here, I'll comment on. Yeah, he's wearing a Boise State shirt. I'll flick him some crap. There's someone's wearing like someone has cauliflower ear, they'll talk to me about it. And I had a conversation with someone recently that his family was from France. He asked me if I played rugby. I was like, oh no, man, I actually wrestle and do jujitsu. And he's like, oh, and we had a 15-minute conversation about that. Like his family's going around looking at the house, and he and I are just talking.
Yeah.
And that's a client that I've been able to establish a relationship with that I may or may not have if I just opened the door, talked about the stats of the house that they saw on the MLS before I opened the door anyway. So again, we talk about consistently like stressing our value in relationship construction, forging relationships with people should be a skill you guys are developing, right? And again, this is something you can use in business. F.O.R.D is something you can use in your daily life. It's something you can use at church, at your kids' soccer games, with your family around the dinner table, right? When you're don't want to talk about politics and election year. Let's talk about what do you do for fun? Where do you see, oh, that's a great new job. What are you doing? How do you see it going in 4 or 5 years? How's things going with your kid? Are you guys getting to that preschool that you guys have been trying to get into? All
Right.
that stuff is super easy. And it's just asking a couple questions, letting people talk.
Yeah, I love it, man. So that great. I think you're spot on, and I appreciate that. So, the next time you're struggling for things to talk to people about, we have our 555 program, and we'll talk about that maybe in another video. Just think of Ford,
Yeah.
right? Just think of
So
your family, occupation, recreational, and people's dreams, and just make those relationship connections.
yeah. So how do you get those conversations going, Michael? What's like a good, you know, couple, maybe 2 or 3 questions that you use to try to get people into these forward conversations that, the viewers out there could try to put into place right away?
So one thing that I do before I'm reaching out to people is I'm very observant on what people put out there socially.
Mm-hmm.
And just for today's conversation, that could be like Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook or whatnot. And I try to do just a quick 5 second, just real before I make that phone call and just get a feel for what's going on. Maybe they got a new puppy, right? Maybe they're right now, a lot of people in my sphere, probably my age bracket, their kids are graduating high school and they're
Mm-hmm.
getting ready to go off to college, right? So that's a big deal for people, right? Big life changes too, by the way. I didn't think about that, but there is. Um, so usually whatever's out there, because my thought is, regardless of platform, if someone is sharing it, it's important to them. And I think to acknowledge the importance to them is huge. And then the other thing that I've done, and I've done this for years, is I pretty much don't go a day, even on a holiday, with at least a little happy birthday note to people in my sphere. I've got them in my calendar. I'm pretty diligent about that. I think that's important to acknowledge. A birthday is kind of a big deal for people.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so those are the kind of things that I do to get things moving. And then if I have a connection, if there's, I've got a lot of people in my sphere that I just have connections with. Um, outside of the work environment. It just gives me those cool things to talk about on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Yeah, and I do something similar. I take notes of like, and obviously if I have a strong relationship with someone, I'm gonna know more details. But if we're starting this from a point of like someone we maybe done one transaction with, or that's a referral, or that we don't have as much a connection with, I think just little notes like the dog's a great example, man. Like if you can, I try to take notes like, hey, when's the Cherry Creek Trot? When is, Podtoberfest? There's like a little wiener dog race they do up in Oktoberfest up in Vale every year that I try to send people, little stuff like that, right? And I've talked to some of our agents recently, like, like little ideas like that. Like Peter has a great client that he's having a great time working with right now. And he's like, oh, yeah, they really care about the dogs. So yeah, I'm gonna go kind of over have a second meeting with her now. I was like, dude, stop at this Petco right here. Go get like a couple of dog toys and bring that with you.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, I just never would have thought about it. And we talked like the player that week. He was like, dude, that was awesome. It was great. They really loved it. So just like stuff like that, guys. Like it just like try to be like keep your eye out for little opportunities like that can cost you almost very little time and almost no money. That can make a really positive impact on someone else like that. I mean, like it's he didn't go buy a gold crusted dog toy. He probably spent like $5 on it, right? But it was cool. The clients know that you're thinking about them. They know that you're aligning you're putting their priorities to align with your priorities
Yeah.
because now yeah. And so it's just a little thing like that just shows that you are thinking about them beyond just the transaction on paper, right? Like don't don't give them a bottle of wine at closing, guys. Don't give them like the cutting board with their initials on it they're never going to use. It just takes up space in their kitchen. If you're going to give a gift, and you and I stand by the home warranty, and I think that's great. I do that every
Yeah.
single time. I think that's a super impactful gift that isn't tangible. But if you're going to get a tangible gift for someone, which I think is a good idea, get them something small, but get them a token that represents their value to you and what you mean to them beyond just the transaction on paper, right? If you can find something cool like that, it can be a small budget. Another one I do commonly is like you can get like there's a Berenstain Bears book out there called Moving Day
Yes.
that I get to a lot of families that have younger children. I as a young parent, and Calvin's 18 months old 2 days ago. And so like just something like that like, and it's like, oh, brother bear has a new soccer coach and sister bear has a new teacher, and
Yeah.
kind of because that moves can be really really big for children. They don't get it, right? Like it's when they're in that like 2 to 8 range, they don't interact. They don't understand why this place they called home their entire life is now different. and they don't understand why their friends are changing and why their teachers changing and why they're like it's really tough, right? And so something like that can help articulate that transition to them is really, really easy. You know, if they're having another kid, there's really great books out there you can art that can frame being a big brother or big sister to someone else in a really positive light. So like as you guys see those kinds of things out there in the world, like Michael's right, like take a quick glance through Facebook, see what's changed. You see something big like that, like someone moving, someone graduating, someone being born, you know, dude, go on Amazon, spend $3, you have their address, message it over to them, give them a phone call, say, hey, I'm so happy for you guys. Congratulations. You know, just want to say no real estate talk. It's not about that. It's not about that at all. Just, hey, congrats. Hope things are going well. You know, if you need, you know, oh yeah, just let me know when the baby's born. I'd love to kind of, you know, come say hi, all that good stuff. And
Yeah.
then a day or two later, they're getting a book addressed to their older
Yeah.
kid explaining kind of what it's like to be a big brother or big sister. So
Yeah.
little stuff like that, guys, it sounds like I'm like have this crazy like you know web of red yarn connecting dates and deadlines. It's not, man. Like it's like I'm gonna make my 4 or 5 calls a day. I have that scheduled. I'm gonna pull up whatever the Smith family and I'm gonna say, oh hey, cool, this happened. And I'll adjust my behavior. And it's not every time, guys. I'm not sending them a $5 or $10 gift for every little tiny thing, you know.
Right.
But it's mention every little tiny thing. And then if you see something big like that, yeah, man, get the credit card out, spend $7 and send them something cool. that's
I love it.
that's going to be really impactful.
I love it. Great. Well, so remember again, if you're looking for content to talk to people about, make it about them, right? And think of Ford. All right, great. Have a good afternoon.